Oh, another one. Here we go. Where's the little eye? Come on, internet. There we go. Y'all ready? Here we go. Welcome to Creative Makers Podcast with your host, Joey with Steel Blade Woodworks, Matt with Wacky Works Workshop, Jen with Jen's Turns, Jamie with JP Woodwork, and Jake with Northside Custom Crafts. Welcome everybody to episode 14, and we are back. Hello everyone, I'm Joey with Steel Blade Woodworks. And what's going on? What's so funny?
I don't know.
Hey, Jake, just to let you know, Jake always just hits us with something right before we come in and just gets everybody laughing. So
that's his magic talent.
Yeah, he does it. He does it on Saturday morning cartoons. It's always just something he just throws in right there at the beginning. But
everybody's good at something.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just to let everybody know, we have a movie star in our presence today. You knew we were gonna do it. Mm-hmm. It was either gonna be Jamie or myself, one of us.
Not a movie star, but thank you guys.
Yeah. Miss California. There you go.
Miss California. Mm-hmm. Good day, Sacramento. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. So, yeah, there you go. So today's topic we're going to get into is power tools for the absolute beginner. So, Matt, I'm just kidding. You want to go? Wait a minute, the reason I did that because I'm looking at him and he's over there. I knew he was going to throw everything in, but he's over there looking at like. Anyways, we want to go around the table here and introduce ourselves to everybody, and then we'll get going.
Okay, my name is Jake Thompson. I tell jokes before the show, and I do a show with Jamie every Saturday called Saturday Morning Cartoons. Come and see us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen with Jen's Turn. I've been deemed the local celebrity this week, so please, eventually everybody will get over it, and it'll be okay.
Hi, y'all. Matt Wackerly with Wacky Works. I do a little show on Instagram and YouTubes and stuff of that nature.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie from JP Woodwork, and I want Jen's autograph.
There you go.
There you go, peasant.
So we all compiled a little list here of the top 5 tools that we think that are important for the absolute beginner coming into woodworking, and we're just gonna have a little discussion. If there's any questions in the chat, remember to put QQQ, and we'll take off. So I'm going to start it off, and I'm going to say, probably a bunch of y'all will say it too, but I think if all this basic stuff like tape measures, straight edges, things like that, marking tools or marking, pencil, just kind of the basic stuff that you have, I would say one of the first things that you would probably have, if you don't already have it, is a drill driver set. I think it's a versatile tool that can perform many functions, even sanding if need be, or it can do a lot of things. So anybody want to add to that? That's what I think is probably one of the easiest, and you may already have it, but I think that's one of the first things that can also do a lot of things around the house as well.
So we're gonna go around and do like our 5th most favorite, and then everybody's
down to the number 1 if we get to it. If we get to
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yours is a drill.
I'm gonna say yeah. That's what I'm gonna start with.
I'm gonna go ahead and say my 5th one is palm router. When I first started, it was just putting edges on boards, router edges, and then I did a lot of keyholes, to put stuff on the wall and stuff. I got pretty good at it to where I made a jig for it and everything, but I could just put it down there and go, and it'd be perfectly straight every time by hand. So I did a lot of router work when I first started doing this. So palm router for me, number 5.
Really interesting.
Interesting. So a little note for me, when I do keyholes, even using a template, they go sideways. So
How?
you know,
like a question mark.
just like a question mark. It's ridiculous. It hangs a left it out Bukoiki.
It'll hang on a wall. It's all right.
That's right. I mean, when it's round, does it really matter?
If it's a clock.
Oh my god.
So speaking of round, my number 5 tool is a circular saw. And that being because if you're just getting started, it's a small enough tool, it can take the place of a table saw, or even an expensive track saw. You can basically get your straight edges by using a circular saw.
Nice.
Interesting.
So just about all mine I went with were cordless, and I just want to put out there, usually when you buy something, you want to get into you're buying a battery as well, because you're going to keep on buying the same kind of tool. So you got to do your research on the different types, and there's all types of things that you can get into. You can get in just about all the batteries are just about the same, but you've got to get into one, and you're going to stay with that. And I'm with Jake. It's my cordless trim router. If I had to say anything about it, is make sure that you get not only the cordless trim router or router that you want, but get it the bits that you're going to use, because you're going to get, and you don't need to go buy out the expensive bits and all the biggest stuff right off the bat, but you need to get an assortment of bits, so round over bits and Co bits and OG round bits and Roman bits, and there's all sorts of that you can do with it, and it gives you different
bits on the stick.
Exactly. You can saute them. Yeah. I mean, I just think that's a good tool to help you get. I mean, you can even do juice skewers with them if you're doing cutting boards. You can do all sorts of things with them, and it makes it. You can make jigs with them to do different things. I think it's a really good starter tool.
Mm-hmm. So I compiled my list. That's a bit of a long word. Compiled.
Compile. Good job, Jamie.
Yeah, I know. I'm learning. So I put my list together basically with what I wanted to do when I first started. So it may be a little bit different to what a lot of other people may be doing. So my first one is a Dremel or a rotary tool, mainly because of all the attachments that come with it. I use mine for getting the fuzzies off a back of scroll saw projects. I used it for routering over the corners of or edges of the projects, drilling in them with using the router attachment for the little holes, all sorts. So yeah, the Dremel, and obviously you got the sanding attachments, the carving attachments for when you're on the lathe for doing texturing work. So yeah, I mean, hashtag sponsored as well.
What's that say on your shirt?
So I kind of had to say that. Dremel. So yeah, Dremel is my first one.
And me.
So I put a note in the chat asking the chat what their number 5 tool is, and Kimberly says her number 5 tool would be a center finder. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
There we go.
Interesting. Well, I guess I'm up. You already called all my tools out. What am I going to do?
That's okay.
No. So
That's
my
right.
number
Keep on
4,
rolling.
and I'm going, kind of like how Matt said, if you're gonna get into a platform, you know, most of the times you can buy a set that's going to come with a bunch of this stuff, right? So I would say definitely going to need some sort of sander. So usually when you're going to buy a drill driver set, you can get that included in the kit, but I think that's pretty much like if somebody's going to start out doing this, most of the time they're going to, you know, I think of stuff that I did would be like cutting boards, right? Or like simple signs, number signs for homes, or just signs for home decor. You need a sander, right? So that would be my number 4, because who wants to sand by hand? I know I don't, you know. So
Sometimes I sand my hands.
no, there you go. You can do it to do your nails too. It works real good.
Yeah. So people are going to see. People are going to realize that we didn't compare notes before the show, because my number 4 one is also a sander. I have a belt sander with the spindle attachment on it. It's from Rigid, and it's awesome. It's when I first started doing this stuff, I was cutting out shapes and then sanding them, and that spindle sander and belt sander was a go-to. I used it every day, and I still use it quite a bit. If you watch the Instagram stuff, whenever we're cleaning up the burls and stuff, we got that thing running all the time. Jackie uses it pretty good. She sometimes sands off her fingernails, but there we go.
Safety.
You do it on purpose, like Joey does.
Safety first. Heck yeah, it does a good job. You know, just read. I don't do that at home though, folks. I'm not trying to tell you to do that, but
you'll learn quick.
Things happen.
Doesn't explain the vast range of spray paints you got though.
What about them?
What'd you say?
Painting them after you sanded them.
After you fart? What?
What?
That's painted them after he sanded them.
Ah, you paint your fingernails after you sand them. Okay, now we're
okay.
Oh
Yeah.
Dots. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
Whew.
Bringing it back
I don't know
around.
about you sometimes there. I don't know about you, but okay.
My number 4 is a jigsaw. And again, I'm using that to replace a band saw. You can do your curved lines, whereas I use the circular saw for the straight lines. You can use a jigsaw to do easy curved lines.
Nice.
Hey, that's this. You really thought about this, didn't you?
I did. We had an assignment.
Yeah, this is homework. This is homework, man.
I'm going to get my glasses.
Uh-oh.
Get your glasses on.
We had an
we go.
assignment.
There we go.
She
Serious, I have
understood it.
notes
There
and
you go.
everything.
I didn't understand it. I was doing mine right before the show.
Quality content, folks. Quality
There you
content.
go.
So my number 4 is also a sander. You can do it from like Jake's oscillating sander. I got the same one from Rigid, and then they have the palm sanders, and you don't have to go out and get the Mirka and the Festool right off the bat, or the
Yes,
3M.
you do, Matt. Yes, you do. Yes,
They're
you do.
nice. They're
Now,
super
that
nice.
being said, you can start with the hand sanders, and they'll do the job. But it's night and day when you get into the Mirkas and the 3Ms and the Festools. It's just night and day. But it is something that you can start out with and get going. And then there's another one, just a belt sander itself. If you really got to take down some material, it's a good product to have. If you're going to do that, you need to invest in the grits and work you progression of grits throughout it. So your 60s, your 80s, your 120s, 150s, 180s, all the way throughout. And usually it's stops about 400. So just for the hand sanding stuff. So I think that investing in that as well. So
My next one, I wasn't sure what one to pick, but again, this all depends on if you want to do any of these. So I'm going to go with the one I picked first, and that's a scroll saw. So
I
I've
knew it.
used mine. I've used mine not only for doing fretwork, but I used it also as a mini bandsaw. So for example, if I needed a P, then I'd go and do that, and then I'll come back and use the saw. You can use the you can use the scroll.
That joke had two meanings. People who had two meanings there.
Yeah.
I can cut the hole out of the cut out the middle, or if I wanted to know, cut the middle out without touching the outsides of the wood on the scroll saw. But obviously, if I needed something straight cut through the wood, then I could use that as well. Obviously, if there's a depth on it that just like a bandsaw, but I managed to make do just because of obviously the small workshop. So yeah, the scroll saw was next on my list.
Well done, Jamie.
Well done. Jim in the chat says his number 4 would be trammel points. They're used for dividing and circular pattern development. Nice.
All right. So my next one up on the list is going to be a router. Like y'all said it, I'm getting a router. I believe can be used for various things. If you need to flatten something, you can make you a flattening jig and use that. And when I'm talking a router, I'm not talking a palm router. I'm talking something a little stronger. So if you do get into start making some household home decor and stuff that you can cut some dados in with it, with your straight edge, you could easily take that and cut some dados in to do some easy joinery. You can flatten things with it. You can round over stuff with it. I mean, you can do a whole lot of things with it, making signs with it. You can get they make those letter template deals that you can put in and use the router, with the guide, and it can serve take the place of a lot of things when you're first starting out. Like if you don't have a CNC or anything like that, But
that's your daughter.
That kid in the chat, man. Thank you, Jackie. She's here though. She's here.
I just saw it. She's in there. I just saw it.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So for the audio, Jackie says that her number 6 tool, we're going to let the top 5 go. Her number 6 tool is the search bar, which is really a very handy tool. I'll have to agree with her there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's one of our favorites.
Yeah.
So my number 3 tool is a miter saw, and certain projects you use it all the time. Matter of fact, building this resin room, I don't know how many 2x4s we cut with it. But side note on that is, well, if you're making frames and stuff, and people make jigs for the table saw, but you can do that, and there's ways to make it accurate and things like that. But side note is, I took the dust collection off of it to do a video over dust collection, and I had it set up to come on automatically. So I'm getting ready for cartoons. I'm cutting a bunch of burl. And I don't know how you ever do that without dust collection in the first place, because it murdered the shop just with a few cuts. So you get spoiled to doing to having the automatic dust collection all the time, and then when just a few cuts, it's going. I'm gonna get these other videos filmed so I can get my dust collection put back together for that saw. And other side note on that is, I like it so much. I built a J Bates miter saw station to go around it, and it has tons of storage and everything. And I'm super glad it's one of the first projects I ever did, and no regret on doing that at all.
And I know a lot of people don't like them and they're not safe, but that brings along like a chop saw, but using a radial arm saw, because that can take the place of a lot of tools. It's not the safest thing, but if you use it properly, you can do a lot of things with it. I have an old Craftsman sitting in the old barn, and I'm thinking of, I don't know if I'm going to put it in here. I'd like to use it, but it is, it gets a little sketchy sometimes with them. You got to be careful. But anyhow, that's my 2 cents.
Mhm.
It applies, to most shop tools, though. You have to make sure you're being safe with whatever you're using. And if it's a tool that you're not comfortable with, then search bar. Make sure that you're doing your research and seeing what are the safe applications and the things you should stay away from.
I mean, it's a good saw. It serves its purpose. I wouldn't advise anybody to do any ripping on it, because that's where it gets a little sketchy with that. If you don't know exactly, and that's kind of maybe not a tool for a beginner. That's a little more advanced usage there, but you can get some pretty good cuts with them. You can, I mean, really and truly. I mean, look at Dusty Lumberco. I love watching his stuff.
Yeah.
He uses the heck out of it.
Yeah.
It gives in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice. Even to put a dado stack on it and use it in that orientation, pretty nice. But anyhow.
Yeah. Here's one from the chat. Connie says she doesn't know what number, but hers would be a drill press. The hardest thing for her is drilling a straight hole. Drill press is very handy. I was using mine at lunchtime.
You just take a lunch break and go drill pressing.
Just drill pressing. That's how movie stars do it.
That's how they do it.
That's how they do. I didn't know. I had no idea.
That's how the other half lives.
I have a full schedule, man. I had to prep a blank. I got a maple burl blank from Mr. Jake Thompson that I wanted to use to make a cigar humidor. And so during lunch, because I work from home most days, during my lunch break, I went out to the shop and I used the drill press and a Forstner bit to drill the blank and got it glued up. And then it was time to go back to work. So it's sitting in the shop drying, and this weekend I can turn it. So
Nice.
Was it the bird's eye one? Was it the bird's eye one?
Yes, sir.
Well, I sent her 2 crappy ones and then 1 good one, so I was wondering.
Take the good with the bad.
So
I'm going for the good one first.
You're gonna practice with the good one. That's cool.
Yeah. You're going all in right from the get-go.
Confidence.
My number 3 tool is an air compressor. And I know that probably sounds weird compared to everything else you guys are listing, but I use the air compressor a lot, especially making pins. Use it to, when I'm drilling the blanks on the lathe, use it to cool down the drill bit or blow the debris out of the bit or out of the blank so that I can clear it out and make room for the bit to get further in. After I'm sanding boards and stuff, I will use the air compressor to blow off the dust because the denatured alcohol doesn't always pick it up. So
I knew there was going to be a couple of tools today where we just go, dang it, I didn't think of that. That's one of them. That's as soon as you said it, I was like, dang it.
Yeah. It's hard when you got a short list like that.
So mine number 3 would be a jigsaw. Jigsaw, I mean, you can do so many applications with it. Replaces a bandsaw in a lot of manners. You can get different size bits. You can get bits that can cut different materials. The finer the blade, the you can get into your plexiglass and stuff of that nature with it. But yeah, a jigsaw is a great starter tool, and it's a great tool to be able to cut curves and like I said, replacing a bandsaw. So,
hey, you also cut some metal with it, soft metal. You do some aluminum.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you can also do some light steel. I've used mine for type of thing.
Bring it up.
Aluminium.
I knew it. Aluminum.
Yeah. You do all that stuff in your garage.
Yeah, garage.
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 All right.
It was the funniest thing when I first met Jamie. They were always said garage, and I was like, "What is that?" I didn't know what they were talking about.
Is he
I had no
speaking or
clue.
choking?
Chew your food before you talk.
And they had to enlighten me on that one. So I give them. Go ahead.
Okay, so my next one on the list will be a lathe. So I guess the lathe kind of speaks for itself, really. You can make multiple things with it, from bowls, goblets, boxes, various things. Rubber
Goblets.
band shooter things.
Things.
Thingy-majiggers.
Thingy-majiggers, spin tops, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, lathe. If you're able to mount it on the lathe, you can turn it into a pillar drill or drill press. Your sanding disc, you can turn it into that. I mean, there's many attachments for lathes these days. So yeah, lathe is next on my list.
I would agree with that. Before I had the drill press, I would use the lathe, for drilling, obviously, and for pressing. When I'm pressing the pin parts together, I use the lathe also.
Yeah.
It's a precise piece of equipment. That'll get
Yeah.
you a straight hole there.
As long as your
It'll get you
tailstock
there.
lines up.
Mhm.
Don't mess it up like Matt, but yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Or other people.
Yeah.
In the chat, Kimberly says an overhead air filter is on her list.
Well, at some point, she's going to need to build something.
Hey.
But anyhow, my number 2, I'm going to go with a bench top joiner, or if you find a used floor one. I believe that you can get away with the joiner not having a planer. So I think you can do a lot of things. You can get at least 2 sides square with that, to get you some good glue seams. And, I believe that that's probably a good one to have, especially for a beginner, a bench top model that you can have. And it would serve for a lot of purposes. So that's mine.
Yep. My number 2 one, my number 1 and number 2, I just kind of like, what do I use every day? What do I use almost on every project in the, I think it was your first one, Joey, is the drill driver set. I have several sets, several of them. There's one in here, there's one out there, there's one over there. And I use them absolutely all the time. That's if Jackie don't borrow them and don't bring them back for a month.
Well, she did put in the chat that she does love sandpaper, so it probably goes with her drill.
Like sanding with it or eating it or
it's like a bubble wrap.
I bet you're gonna get that drill back this weekend.
Nah, she gave it back. Actually, she gave it back and and told me, and I forgot, and I kept messing with her about it. She's like, I brought that back 2 weeks ago. I was like, I'm still gonna mess with you.
Poor Jackie.
Oh, that's what kids are for.
It is. Oh, now she says she exfoliates with it.
It's super gross.
What?
Don't we all?
Anyway, my number 2 is also a cordless drill. It's very versatile, like you guys have said. You use it in the house for basic things and out in the shop for a number of things. So cordless drill, take it anywhere. And as you guys know, I have a new one on my shopping list, so mine will get replaced soon.
Heck, you can even use it for food preparation. I know everybody's seen that. Just
Food
putting it out
prep,
there.
mixing resin, actually drilling things into
Chucking corn, cutting potatoes.
Protein.
I mean, you name it.
Protein shakes.
protein shakes.
Yeah.
Blinder's broke. Get the drill.
All sorts of things you can do.
Mhm.
Uh,
So my number 2 thing would be the skill saw. And one of the things I like with my skill saw is I can make so many jigs with it. So you can do, you can make a homemade track saw jig with it. You can do a tapering jig with it, and you can actually almost replace or somewhat replace a joiner with it by joining 2 pieces or cutting 2 pieces at the same time, giving it the same edge. As long as you had like I said, a track saw or something like that to keep it flat. So a skill saw I think is really versatile. And if you're good enough with it, you can use other jigs, 45 jigs, stuff like that, to make miters, so you don't have to go get a chop saw or a joiner or anything like that. You can use the tools that you have to make it. Does it make it easier to use a joiner? Of course it does. Chop saw? Of course it does. But you can use it with a circular saw.
Mhm.
nice.
So next on my list is a sander. Whether it be a random orbit sander, palm sander, disc sander, belt sander. I don't know if it is there anymore.
I
Yeah,
hope it includes round
s-
sandpaper.
Nope,
Nah,
not in this
no.
case. Not in this case. I knew you were going. I knew you was going to do that to me.
I was waiting. I
Call
was
me
waiting
out
for the
right on
pause.
podcast.
Just lopped
How
it
the
there.
fuck? Yeah, I would say everyone needs a sander right at the start, of some sort. Because obviously all work at some point has got to be finished, whether it's wood, resin, bit of both. If not to finish it, then to maybe even shape it. So yeah, the sander is definitely up there for me.
Cool.
With non-circle sandpaper.
Mm.
Got Animal Planet going on over there.
Yes.
Who knows with this guy? So my
No.
number 1. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to tell a funny story. Earlier this week, I actually put together a new little disc sander, and you needed a 5-inch sanding disc with a sticky back. Well, I only had the ones with the Velcro back. I had a 6-inch with the sticky back, and I'm like, what the heck? And I kept thinking of Jamie trying to cut a circle in sandpaper. I threw it on the laser and made a 5-inch circle. It was awesome.
There you go. There you go.
Nice.
Funny thing is, he has one, and he won't pull it out of the box to do it.
Nah. Ain't
Yeah,
gonna
I
do it.
know. I need to do that.
He said, yeah,
Get after
yeah.
it, Jamie.
Yeah, I think
It's
the
like I
laser at
told
the
him,
moment's
he
right
sure can
down
make
the
some
list.
round bowls, but he can make some round bowls, but he can't make round sandpaper.
I'll put some sandpaper
Anyhow,
on the lathe.
Yeah. So my number 1 I'm going to put down is a circular saw. I think a skill saw. I think that, just like Matt was saying, you can accomplish a whole lot of things. You can rip, cross cut, as well as make you some good glue edges with it if you don't have a joiner. But just starting off, to make a big expense and not know if you're going to like woodworking, I think a lot of these tools you can that I've put and everybody else has put, that you can attain them fairly reasonable, and I think you can get the basic woodworking stuff done to make sure you're going to like it. And then from there, you can expand and get better tools down the road, but this will get you going. You know, we didn't it how far do you want to take this? I mean, we can include nailers, but you can do glue. The
Mhm.
drills can put screws in. A lot of times now, as we've progressed in our woodworking, you try to stay away from that. I know when I first did it, man, I buying screws by the pound, because I was screwing everything together. You know, it's horrible. You look
Pocket
back
holes,
at some of
pocket
this.
holes.
Yeah, I didn't even do pocket holes. It was just, you know, just butt joints
Butt
and
joints.
yeah, yeah, just getting it on. Put another screw, it'll hold it. Add one more, you know. So it's crazy. You look back at the stuff that I'd done a long time ago, and it's like, ooh, but we all got to start it at some point, you know, and that was where screws came in. Screws and glue.
Yeah. My number one is a bandsaw, and it's because when I first started doing this, I got a table. I had a table. I had a table saw, but it was super scary. And like you said, if you're not comfortable with the machine or you think you might get hurt, then either do more research on it or figure out another way to do it. Either make a jig or do something. I had a table saw as a contractor one. I won't say the brand because we just don't do that kind of thing around here. And you would turn it on and there was no easy start. It'd just say, bam, so rattling. It's and the fence wasn't quite right. And part of it was probably my fault because I didn't know what I was doing. It was brand new. So I had a bandsaw that I would do curves on. And so that table saw scared me so bad that I bought another bandsaw. And I put a thick blade in it and a resaw fence, and I cut straight lines with that. And now I put it number one on my list is because I use it every day. And where it doesn't matter, is I'm not doing fine furniture here. I'm just cutting pieces up so that we can use them in blanks and stuff. And I use them every day. So there's a little bit of that table saw used to scare the crap out of me, and I'd used it a little bit, but I have a nice one now with a nice fence, and I did my research and figured out what was wrong and what I didn't like, and then I sold that one, got some of my money back, and then I got the better table saw, but I had to learn. So bandsaw, number one for me.
Bandsaw. Number one for me is something you guys have all already said, and that's the sander, orbital sander. Because basically 99% of the projects that you're going to do, you need to finish them somehow. And, you know, the sander is quick and easy. If you don't have a planer, you can resort to the sander. It might take you a little bit longer depending on your project size, but the sander's going to help you shape it, finish it. It's going to look nice when you're done.
There you go.
So the number one for me would be a drill set, and it'd be your drill, your impact driver, the whole kit together. And the reason is that you can use that to connect anything together, whether you're doing butt joints and glue and wondering why it doesn't hold together with a butt joint as well, or if you're doing miters, or if you're doing pocket holes, and you can get jigs to go with it, pocket hole jigs. You can get different things to go with it. You can use it for sanding. But if you're going to do it, you're going to invest in a good drill bit set and a drive set. And my biggest thing is I don't like Phillips head and flathead screws. I like my torque head screws. So I invested in a lot of torque head screws and had drawers and drawers full of them. So, but yeah, a drill set is my number one thing.
So I'm with Matt on this. So my number one is a drill set. When it comes to turning, I probably could do some turning without the drill set. You know, there's always ways around stuff. But with regards to scroll sawing, I wouldn't be able to do the scroll saw up without a drill of some sort, may it be a pillar drill or a hand drill. Obviously, you need holes in the wood, and you can't do that without a drill. So there's that obviously.
Is that a challenge?
Not with that attitude.
Or a bradle and just whack it all together. But you can sand it, I suppose. using it, and more recently, I've used it to mix resin. Yeah, I've used it to mix that. Ready to pour it into my molds from NorthsideCustomCrafts.com.
By God.
So
God.
yeah,
There you go.
there you go. So yeah, a drill and drill driver set.
So since we're
Nice.
kind of ran through these, let's bring this question up right here. This is interesting. I want to hear what everybody's answer is to this. I've been trying to think back in my old age. It's hard to go back that far, but Martin asked, do you remember your first woodwork project? What was it?
I do.
Do you?
I do. Yep. I was Martin knows. I was married at the time, and she went and bought some crosses from Hobby Lobby so we could paint them, and then we were giving them as gifts. But then the next time everybody liked them, so we were going to make some. We went back to Hobby Lobby, and I saw how much they cost, and I'm like, I've never done anything with a piece of wood before, but I bet I can do it cheaper than that. And so we went, and I didn't know what I was doing. I bought a scroll saw, and we bought a sheet of plywood. That was the most crookedest cutting piece of crap. I didn't know it was doing what it was supposed to be doing, but so I ended up buying a small bandsaw from the hardware store, and got through a couple of them, and then we made a bunch of them, and that's what started the whole thing off, was making those crosses. Never did anything with wood or any kind of crafts like that before, and just because Hobby Lobby was gouging us, man.
There you go.
So mine, before I did something at home, mine was back in grade school, and it was during shop class or ag class. Down here, it's ag class is what we call it. And just like Leah said, that we'd always build something to put in the fair, even though some of us had animal projects that we'd show, but we'd also put something in. It was like kind of the homemaking, but it was all kind of tied together. But I built a barbecue pit, but I had to put a board. Most barbecue pits have some sort of cutting board or a board where you can place stuff. And that's kind of what got me. That was the first time I've ever used a router and a saw. They had everything in there. They didn't have a whole lot of woodworking stuff. They had the common stuff like table saw, skill saw, routers, and but I made the board, and I routed in on the top was the logo, or basically the name or the initials of the person I built the pit for. So it was actually the ag teacher's husband that purchased all the material, and I built the pit, and then I put that board, and that's kind of like what got me hooked in, was the first time I used that. And then from there, years later, I got back into it, and I built the first thing I built at the house at my old shop was the most hideous table you've ever seen out of pallet wood, because back then it was like pallet wood was the thing. I look back at it. I mean, it was cool. Everybody loved it, but I look back at it now and I'm like, oh my God, that nothing was even exposed screw holes.
Joey, it's rustic.
But yeah, that's what it was. It was a rustic table. I mean, I remember we did all this and finished it, and then we started slapping it with chains to put marks on it. That's what they wanted. Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose you sanded it down with round sandpaper as well, did you?
Of course.
Yeah.
That's all we do here in the U.S. is round sandpaper.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
that was,
my
Go
go ahead.
ahead.
sorry,
Jen.
were you still your story, Joey?
No, not no more, Jen. Go ahead. You're the movie star.
My first one really was a house sign for my dad. I had started doing stuff on the lathe, and he took that as woodworking. And so he wanted a number sign for his vacation place. And I was like, well, I can't do that on the lathe. So I went out and I bought a scroll saw thinking, well, I could just scroll out some
Woohoo!
numbers real quick. This is going to be easy. So yard sale, here I come. Bought a little used scroll saw. And it has now cost me thousands of dollars later. But he did eventually get his house number assigned and then turned around and sold the house. So that, $1,000 sign is still
was the
sitting
selling
on
point
somebody
right there.
else's vacation home.
That was the selling point.
That's funny you say that. Till today, you can ask my wife. That was the worst mistake she ever made. Was ask me. She found something on Pinterest and said, "Can you make this?"
Sure
And I was
can.
like, "Well, sure I can, but I'm going to need some tools."
exactly.
Yep.
And that's where it started. And she's like, "Why did I ever ask
Yeah.
you?" Because she knows. I mean, it's just the way it is. Got to have some tools. And then from
Yep.
there, it's progressed
Mhm.
into.
You start one thing and you're like, oh, I could do this if I just had this, and I could do that.
But I got real good at it. I got real good at it. How
Course.
to break it and ask. Well, just not ask, but tell. But yes, ask. I'm not
This
gonna lie.
project
She's probably watching.
tool.
So you're gonna hear later.
But
So,
it's
I get-
so
Mhm.
she'd be like, "What? So what do you need now?" Well, if I had this, I can't really get this done, but if I had this, it would make
Uh-huh.
it so much easier.
Mhm.
You just kind of that deal. But yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So my first projects were, home renovation, stuff of that nature, but it was always supervised. So my first unsupervised project was speaker boxes. So I just dove right in and was doing angles and figuring out air and airflow and doing all that stuff. That was my very first, and I had to buy a table saw and a jigsaw and gluing and screwing, and so that was my very first out of MDF, and then wrapping it in carpet. So
That was a real big hit, early 90s, late
Mhm.
late 80s, but really early
early
mid
90s.
90s, early 90s, mid 90s, because that's what a lot of people were doing in ag shop too. Everybody was putting sound systems in their trucks,
Yep.
Mhm.
tearing things apart, making speaker boxes.
Oh
All
yeah.
the welding and metal fabrication stopped. It was a speaker box
Mhm.
shop there.
Oh yeah.
So for me, I mean, I was making stuff out of wood when I was really really young. But the problem with that is nothing ever came, and I had a little shed in the backyard. But the problem with that is nothing ever made it past the firing bin into the house. So when I actually made something that I was actually getting requests, I was making like little name plaques and things like that. But the very very first one I ever made, I made a Scottish Terrier with a name Jinx on it on the scroll saw, and it was all painted black, and that was for one of my mum's friends. That was the very first thing I was ever asked to make on the scroll saw.
Nice.
So I'm gonna ask a question. Do y'all remember
Oh no.
the first tool you bought? The first
Uh-huh.
actual woodworking tool that you got?
Mhm.
Mhm.
What was it? What was it?
It's that scroll
What
saw.
was it?
Scroll saw.
Scroll saw.
Scroll saw. And matter of fact, I didn't use it for what I thought I would use it for, and then I started making like car emblems and stuff, making them 3D and sold them to the local drag racers and stuff. And it was pretty fun, but I still use it if I need to cut a circle out or a P. I got to make a P. Then I go and then I use the scroll saw, and then but I do use it all the time as just a tool for that. And but that was my first purchase, and it was the exact wrong one, but I still have it, and I like it.
I've got one of those put in the corner that I don't use no more.
Yeah, I do still have the scroll saw. It's still in the shop, but again, it's tucked in the corner, and I don't remember the last time I used it, but it's there just in case. So I don't remember if I got that first or the lathe, but the lathe was a gift. I actually bought the scroll saw. So
I bought an old Craftsman table saw. That was my first, like, I want to say a big power tool. That was like the first thing, one of the first ones that I got when I had my own place.
Mine was I was a big fan of Norm Abram, and we had a Porter Cable reconditioned shop here, and I went wild and got a table saw, bandsaw, and drill set. Was my first thing to go build speaker boxes.
Hey, there's always
Yeah.
there's normally the project that dictates what tools you're going to buy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because I actually had to go back and get a jigsaw. So,
So when I decided to get back into woodworking and start taking things seriously, I obviously wanted to do scroll sawing. That's what I really wanted to do. But that's not the first tool I bought because Vicky bought me that. So the first thing I ever bought was my first lathe. So
nice.
that's where the turning took off from. So yeah.
Interesting.
Very
So-
nice.
So I have a question. Just one bonus tool. One bonus tool that you'd recommend as people to use. It just makes a difference.
I'm gonna go with the bandsaw.
Budget, anything, or just whatever
Anything. Just one tool that makes a difference. Yeah, I'd say for beginners.
for beginners.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the bandsaw.
So we have honorable mentions. It was so hard to put just 5 down there. I gotta have honorable mentions. And
Yeah,
I had a shop vac with the Cyclone. I do these videos about them, but it's just because I think they're cool and
Mhm.
I use them all the time. The shop vac hooked up to just when you're sanding on the lathe or hooked up to the miter saw. I actually have the big dust collector hooked up to the miter saw, but I never use it because the shop vac that goes into the back of the miter saw and comes on automatically is awesome. And I forgot how awesome it was until I used it without it this week. And so I had shop vac as an honorable mention. Like, and I think, and when I started doing this stuff and I made the other shop, I tried to make the other shop into wood shop. One of the first things I got was a big dust collector because I just knew. I watched enough videos and I knew, and the table saw, and I already had the big bandsaw and hooked everything up to that. So that was first, kind of like Joey when doing race car stuff or whatever, that you got your car before you put your engine in, you make sure it has a roll cage and the fire extinguisher and all the safety stuff goes in first. And that's what I did. I had that same approach when I did the shop, was with the dust collection.
So I'm gonna add this, and we talked about skill saws and stuff, but I'm gonna say that, excuse me, I'm gonna say a track saw, even though it might be a little pricey for a beginner, but I think a lot of beginners are now moving to getting one of them. And I'm not talking the high end ones, they're all good. They're all good. I'm not talking down to any of them. But with that, you can do ripping. It pretty much takes the place of a table saw, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It can. If you want to just eliminate that out of the shop, you to a point, right? If you're going to be ripping big material, even with a good ripping blade, they'll still do it slow, maybe multiple passes. So that's why I'm saying it could take place of a table saw, and it's a lot safer. You're not like a skill saw trying to clamp in a straight edge with that track. You put the saw on there and it's going to cut straight.
Yeah.
And it's going to give you a good edge. I mean, it's so versatile that I would say that would be something that I would highly recommend anybody getting into it, is get you a track saw.
I have one that tends to help you fix mistakes, makes a okay word worker better, and that would be the oscillating multi-tool. If you've never used one,
Dang
it's
it.
got a cutting edge. It's got a cutting edge on it. You can cut sheetrock, you can cut plywood, you can cut 2x4s. If you just cut them off on an angle, cut them in place. It's a blade that just cuts the side. vibrate side to side. It's a pretty nice tool. I like it a lot. So yeah, that's mine.
So when we were building a resin room, Matt had one and Dave had one, and I didn't have one, and I was messing around with it. And we used it tons of times on here. And as soon as they left, I went and got one. And I use it all the time. I use it all the time now. I didn't realize how versatile it was, or how much helpful it was to have it laying around until I saw it being used, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to get one of those, and I do.
Yeah, and it can be used for sander. It's got sanding attachments.
Yeah, it does. That's a really good tool. Yeah.
It's funny because I actually have bought one, but I've never used it.
No, once you do, you'll realize
they're awesome. Go as soon as we get done here. Go play with it. Go chop stuff up, man. It's cool.
That's a reel.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot more. It's gonna be more than a reel.
Oh yeah.
She doesn't learn.
Yeah. So for me, I'm gonna kind of go sway off track a little bit, and I'm gonna look at it as if my workshop was empty. Yeah, I'm gonna look at it as if my workshop was empty, and I only found out about this tool about a year ago, thereabouts, maybe a little bit less than that. And it's been out since the 1940s, and I'm going to say the Shopsmith. It's a 7-tool-in-1 doohickey. And you've basically got a table saw, a lathe, a disc sander, drill press, router, shaper, and a boring machine.
Yep.
So that's what I will get. And if I had no tools in this shop, I would probably look into again. I didn't realise they were actually available in the UK. But it turns out you can get one for less than $1,000. So
way less than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when those things first came out. What year was that? What year did, like, when they hit the US and they were really pushing them, because they used to do infomercials. I remember, I think it was around the time. Oh, when was it?
Mid-80s.
You just messed up. Jamie's on it like a dog. Look at him right there. He's on it.
I thought I still had the Patreon, but I just got the eBay ad open.
Yeah, I remember that. My dad wanted to get when he was looking at those things, and it was like pretty cool. I was like, yeah, get it. But anyhow, it's getting to the end of the time here, so let's just go around quickly and let everybody know what's going on this week, and we'll get on out of here.
Jamie and I have an awesome show set up for this Saturday. It's going to be all pen blanks, and I have some pretty cool wood cut up. It's pretty impressive wood, actually. The wood is impressive for this weekend. And we also have Patreon that we're going to be doing. So we're going to be making somewhere around 70 pen blanks in 2 hours. So come and see us. We're going to have a good time. And we have some new sound effects too. So pretty excited about best $20 I ever spent. Best $20 I ever spent.
This week I'm trying to actually take it easy and relax a little bit, since
all of the bright lights, lights.
It's been a busy couple of weeks. So this weekend I don't have a market or anything to go to, so gonna try to relax a little bit. I am going to do a little bit of turning, like I said before, and it's rare these days that I actually get to do turning. I've been teaching classes on it, but I'm going to actually do some myself this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Us too.
I'm still trying to get in the shop. Work is kind of consuming at this point in time, but trying to get in there and do something. So that's where I'm at.
I've been having fun making some resin blanks. I'm going to continue making some resin blanks until it's time to turn some resin blanks. And then on Saturday, I'm going to be there on the Saturday morning cartoons watching Jake make some resin blanks. And if anybody doesn't know about the Jake Blank Club, come over to Saturday morning cartoons and I'll tell you about the Jake Blank Club.
There you go.
He will
That's
too.
what I'm going to be doing.
My golly.
I am going to jump off of here in a minute, and I'm going to try to get a new video out on my YouTube channel tomorrow evening. So look for that. Hopefully I can get it done and get it out. And then I'll be on there Saturday trying to keep Jamie in line and make sure he
Good luck with
doesn't
that.
mess up. But anyhow, that's what I got going on. And next week we have Heidi Jacobs from Whitehall Pottery going to be on the podcast. So y'all come in and listen in. She does some awesome work.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's going to be, did I mention already that we are on iTunes? Did I do that already?
Say it again, brother. Say it again.
We're on iTunes now. So for all you people out there that do go and listen on the airwaves, we should now be completely on all the major platforms. So make sure you get out there and leave us 10 stars, not 4 or 5. I want 10. But anyhow, we'll be back next week. Same place, same time, same pretty faces. And we are out of here. Welcome to Wrong One.